Now we're going to start learning Megilas Rus. Megilas Rus is a Megillah which is associated with the Yom Tov of Shavuos. And the Yalkut Ba'amleis, he brings, if I'm not mistaken, 19 reasons why we learn Megilas, we read Megilas Rus on Shavuos. Why we, meaning why most of Klal Yisrael has an official say they're reading Megilas Rus on Shavuos. There were communities that they actually had a Megillah written on parchment, just like we do for Megilas Esther, and with a bracha, and they would read Megilas Rus. Most communities do not do so. However, most communities do read it out loud together. In Chabad, it's not the official minhag to learn Megilas Rus on Shavuos more than any other Yom Tiv. However, this is the way it's always said. The way it's always said is that in Chabad, we don't learn Megilas Rus on Shavuos. However, in the Tikkun Leil Shavuos, we do end up saying the entire Megilas Rus. Every other part of Tanakh, we just say small parts of it. But Megilas Rus, we say the entire Megilas Rus. So it comes out that even in Chabad, we say the entire Megilas Rus. So the connection to Shavuos is connected. There's a number of basic connections. The fact that Rus was a Giyoris and she came to accept the Torah, so too on Shavuos we're coming to accept the Torah. Also, Rus is the ancestor of David HaMelech. And David HaMelech is the Chiziyam to Shavuos, is the Yarted on Shavuos. It's also connected to the time of the season. A big part of the story of Rus is the harvest time, which is with Shavuos time. But like I said, there's many other reasons as well. Yes?
Why don't we say Rus?
Why don't we? There's many minhagim that we don't, that Klal Yisrael does and we don't do. Why don't we say Shir HaShirim on Friday night? What? I don't recall that. I'd like to see that. I don't recall ever seeing that. Okay? But like all those things is that there's the minhagim that everyone has their minhag, what they're supposed to be doing. It's not our thing. There's nothing wrong with doing it. It's just not our official minhag. All right, just an interesting word that I recently heard, and I looked it up, and it's taka true. In English, there's a word when you want to say somebody's very cruel. One of the ways of saying it is that the person is a ruthless person. Hakesha, ruthless. So the actual source of the word is that Rus was a person of compassion, a person of mercy, and that's why she went and she took care of her mother-in-law, as we go right there. So ruthless means someone that doesn't have the midah of Ruth. That's the actual source of the word ruthless, that there's a lack of Rus. So we're going to go through like we did the other in Navi. We're going to go through the story with the Mefarshim. I doubt we'll be able to finish it by the time Shavuos comes along, but we'll continue and as much as we can. So first of all, the Megilas Rus begins with the words Vayihi bimei shveit hashoftim. It was in the times of the judges of the judges. The judge is judging. So when exactly did the story of Rus happen? That's a big debate amongst Chazal, amongst the Mefarshim, when it happened. It's definitely in the era of the Shoftim. The era of the Shoftim is after the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael until the Beis HaMikdash was built. That's until the Malachim, basically. You can argue Shaul was before that, but the era of all the Shoftim. How many years was that? Approximately
52 years.
400 years. Approximately 400 years from when they came into Eretz Yisrael, all the Shoftim, until so it's somewhere along these 400 years. When exactly? So, as many of you, I assume, know that one of the main characters in the story of Rus is Boaz. Now, this Boaz, Chazal tell us, his real name is, His real name is, Ivtzon. Ivtzon. There's a famous Chabad family called Avtzon. I wonder if Avtzon comes from Ivtzon somehow. Same letters. So Ivtzon was a Chazal say that's Boaz. So if Boaz is Ivtzon, then we have it very clear when the story happened, because Boaz / Ivtzon was the Shofet right after Yiftach. That was an educated guess. And therefore, so now we know exactly when to place it. That means that the story that we're going to learn now happened approximately the end of Yiftach's life and the beginning of, because he was a Shofet. So that's one, because the story, as Chazal say, that the story of Boaz happened, Boaz's participation over here was at the end of his life. Right after he married Rus, he passed away. They had a child, so it was right at the end of his life. So that would be very clear when the time is. But there are those at Mefarshim that say no, based on other places in Chazal, that it was earlier in the times of Dvoira and Naphtali and Barak, and the times of, some say before, the times of Ehud ben Gera. So it was somewhere in the times of the Shoftim. Now, the Chazal say the word Shveit HaShoftim is trying to imply something negative that was going on. What was negative that was going on? Chazal say it was a doish, a shoftu, a shofta. This is something which happens in pretty much every yeshiva, and that is one of the topics that a lot of bochum like to talk about is hanhola, right? Who is a good hanhola, who's a bad hanhola. Some yeshivas even make songs about it, and they sing it together. That's adket, it's so important for them. So it's a thing that's a very, very common to lashon hara about who's good and who's bad and what he said and what he did. And the bochum noticed if he got a new hat or if he took a haircut, and everyone's it's a big deal. Some yeshivas spend more time in it, some less time on it. In some yeshivas, it's mamish the topic, the 24/7. That's what they're talking about. Usually negative, usually not positive. That's usually the way the conversations go. I always ask bochum, you can't speak lashon hara. It applies to your hanhola as well. Obviously, not hanhola too, but. I haven't been so successful. But Holifin, in those times, of the story of Rus, Shveita Shaftim, the people were constantly complaining to their Shaftim, and when the Shafit ever tried telling off one of the people, you have to behave, they would respond, who do you think you are? You're even worse than me. In the words of Chazal, if you would say, Toil kisa mi bein shenacha, he would respond, Toil koira mi bein enacha. You tell him you have something stuck in your teeth, he would say between your eyes you have a big boulder. So basically they were constantly finding fault with their shaftim, with their leaders, and you can imagine that being a leader in such a situation is not fun when you're constantly being analyzed and spoken to back and put down. So it's not a fun thing. You know, there's a famous joke that one time there's this guy who was had a friend that he hadn't seen in many years, and he hears that his friend became the Rav. So he in a different city, so he travels to a city and asks around, where's my friend, Reb Elia the Rav, where is he? So they say, the Rav, you call that guy a Rav, he's such a swindler, he's such a dishonest person. Really, he's my friend, but he's a Rav, he's a rabbi, where is he? No, go for that direction. Continues right, asks the next thing, my friend Reb Elia, where is he? Reb Elia, you call that guy a Rav, that guy, I don't think he puts on film, you call him a rabbi, Kitzer, he goes, every person gives him directions and another bracha cursing out this rabbi. Finally, after hearing all these curses, he finally meets his friend Reb Elia, how you doing? Oh, Baruch Hashem, they're of the community. So I don't understand, people mamish, they hate your guts, they're cursing you out. What's going on? So Reb Elia says, no, what does a person not do for covet? That was actually very good. So, Shveita Shaftim, it's not easy to be a Rav in such a case, and so therefore, this is the beginning of the story we want to continue. The pasuk then says another thing, Vayihi Ra'av ba'aretz, and there was a hunger in the land. B'chlal, it says, No one got, no, Shmuel Simcha got the joke.
Read it again.
Shmuel Simcha will have to explain that afterwards.
What's the joke?
It's a very good joke. Listen, the laugh that Yoni laughed was the laugh that's supposed to be laughed at. Yoni didn't get either, we all know. But but that's the laugh that deserves, such a joke deserves such a laugh. No, Balasa. Can't explain my jokes.
You say the joke.
Shmuel Simcha, you'll explain it?
Say it again.
Say the joke.
We're all spaced out. Say it again.
Oh.
That was.
I thought we didn't understand.
No, Balasa.
Wow.
Explain the joke. I'll explain the joke. The joke is that the rabbi said, what don't I do for covet? To be a Rav, you have covet. What's the covet? That everyone curses you out the whole time. But it's Rebellia got it also. Rebellia is not the Rav. I forgot. I used your name though. That's why you got it. It wasn't funny. No? All right. Vayirav ba'aretz. So in the Targum over here, he brings that there were 10 times in the history of Tanakh that there was a Rav ba'aretz. In Avraham Avinu's time, Yitzchak's times, and afterwards, in Tanakh a few places, in one of those times. Why was there a Rav? For this reason. Because of this, because the people were misbehaving, there was a lack of derech eretz for their anhola. At that time, the anhola was the shoftim, and because of that, Hashem punished them, and there was a hunger in the land. And now, because of that, there was a what are they going to do now? So everyone is a hunger. So Avraham Avinu, when there was a hunger, he took it as a sign that it's time to leave Eretz Yisrael. He didn't take it as a sign. He actually, it was part of Hashem's hidden instructions to him, but he understood he has to leave town. So as a result, one of the characters in the story over here, his name is, anybody knows? Close? No? Eli Melech. Oh, you said right to Eli. Eli Melech, not Avi Melech. Eli Melech. But the pasuk doesn't say his name yet. Vayelech ish mi beis lechem Yehuda lagor bisdei mayav hu v'ishta yushnei vanov. So there was a man from Beis Lechem Yehuda. This person from Beis Lechem Yehuda, he went to live in the fields of Mayav. him and his wife and his 2 sons. So why is he leaving? So why is Elimelech leaving? So Chazal tell us Elimelech was a Gadol Ador. Today the term Gadol Ador is used very loosely for everybody, but when Chazal say it, it means he was a great man. He was a great man, he was Zoichet the Torah Gdula B'Makom Echad, he was very wealthy, and he was a big tzaddik, and he felt that just like Avraham Avinu had to leave town, he had to leave town also. Now, in some places, some Mefarshim paint Elimelech to look very bad, and as we'll see, or what ends up happening to him, it seems like he was very bad. But some places, and this is the way we like to learn everything, is try to point out, to give a different perspective, that Elimelech realized that he's being here right now, he can't influence the people. The people have this issue. If I'm the rabbi and I'm the one that everyone's constantly cursing me out, and every time I try to give somebody mussar, they give me back mussar, look, and then there's nothing that I can do anymore. This is a very important rule when it comes to chinuch, when it comes to yeshivas. If you don't respect your anhala, it's a very, very bad situation. If you don't respect your teachers, not respect them and standing up for them the way, the real proper respect. But a basic appreciation that this guy has something on me, he has some advantages, he knows better than me, smarter than me, better than me, whatever it may be. You don't have that basic respect to him, then you can't really accept anything that he tells you, and it's a recipe for disaster. And Elimelech senses this. He realizes that no one's accepting what he's saying. And look at the result. There's a hunger. So now he's stuck in town over here. So what's he going to do? He can't continue giving them mussar. It's worse. If someone that doesn't respect you, you give him more mussar, you're just setting yourself up for more problems. So Elimelech felt that at this point, there's nothing that I can do anymore. I'm going to follow in my ancestor Avraham Avinu's footsteps, and I'm going to leave town. Now there's another calculation that Chazal say over here, is that Elimelech was wealthy. So for himself, the hunger didn't affect him that much. He was able to manage. But he realized that if I'm not going to leave town now, it's going to be even more problems. They're going to come and now attack me for the fact that I have food and they don't have food. And it's going to be even more problems that he's going to, and the Chazal said that he was concerned, there's going to start being fights over his stuff, and he just saw the situation spiraling out of control, and he can't do anything about it, so he decided he is going to leave Beis Lechem Yehuda. He has to leave. This is where he is right now. Beis Lechem was a chashuv city. Yehuda Bechlal is considered a chashuv shevet always. The city of Beis Lechem was an important city as well, important city within the territory of Yehuda, and he's leaving. Where is he going to go? Lagur Bisdei Moav. He goes to Moav. Moav is which direction from Eretz Yisrael?
East, south.
Southeast.
Southeast. Very good. So he's going southeast, east-south. He's going there to the land of Moav. Sdei Moav. What does Sada mean? Sada means a field. You don't go to live in somebody's field. What does that mean? The plains. So you don't go live in the plains. You live in a city. So the Mefarshim explained that Elimelech didn't want to settle properly in the city of Moav. He knew that he's just going now till things calm down, and eventually he's going to go back. So he doesn't want to go buy a fancy house for himself now in Moav. So he goes to the plains, to the outskirts, to the places where he can't really settle over there, and in his mind he'll be there for a little bit, and eventually he's going to come back. And with him he takes his wife and his 2 children. Chazal say his wife, as we'll see, her name was Naomi, that's in the next pasuk. Chazal point out that Naomi was in a way greater than Elimelech, even though at this point she was tfeilata, meaning at this point she just went along with wherever her husband went. But as we'll see later, she's the only survivor of the family, which implies that she was taka bigger tzadekis, and that's why it says her name was Naomi, because she was ni'ima b'maaseh, she was pleasant in her ways. Just an interesting pshat that some Mefarshim say. Everything has to be connected to Mashiach. Some Mefarshim say that Elimelech, his intent was to bring Mashiach. And indeed, his leaving to stay Moav was the catalyst for Rus to become a Geyerist, which eventually led to David HaMelech being born, which leads to Mashiach being born. So, deep down in subconscious Ruach HaKodesh, whatever you want to call it, that was part of his push, and he felt that's the direction he's going to go, that's going to bring it along. There's also, in the Messiah, we say the words Vayelech Ish. Where else do you have in Torah the words Vayelech Ish? Beis Levi. Who was that? Amram. So he went to marry Yocheved, and that resulted in the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu. Just like over there was obviously a good thing, so the Mefarshim say here it's also really a good thing, even though seemingly he got punished terribly, and it seemed everything went to go bad, but there was a proper intention on his part. That's good. I didn't see that, but that's nice. That's going to be a harder. That's a Meir style thing to do. Pasuk Beis. The Pasuk continues now telling us who he is. V'shem ha'ish Elimelech, v'shem ishtoi Naomi, v'shem bonov, v'shem shnei bonov, machloin v'chilyoin. So Chazal explained what the meaning of all their names are. Elimelech means Elai Malchus. Malchus has a shaykhs to me, meaning Mashiach has a shaykhs to me, as we said, because even though Elimelech himself, who was Mashiach, didn't come from his descendants, it was from his ex-daughter-in-law's husband, right? That's what ends up happening. Because Rus marries his son, as we know the story, then he dies, and afterwards Rus marries Boaz, so it's connected. And also, Elimelech and Boaz are related, as we'll see at the end of the story, that they're really related. So we saw a connection. Elimelech, his father's connected to him. Naomi, we already said, connected to the Imam Masah, and Machlin V'Kilion, there's many different ways of interpreting their names, but it's interesting that they had other names as well. Machlin V'Kilion, it's in Divrei Hayomim, it says their names were Yoyosh and Soraf. So Machlin V'Kilion were the other names that they had, and all these people are traveling together, and the pasuk says they were Ephrasim. What does Ephrasim mean? We have Ephrasim Dakdam of Ratanya. Ephrasim means they were Chashavah people, and also Ephrasim means Mi Beis Lechem Yehuda, meaning the city of Beis Lechem used to be called Ephras. Right? Where's the first time in Chumash we bump into Beis Lechem? By Rachel when she passes away. So it says like Ephras he Beis Lechem. So Beis Lechem used to be called Ephras, and then it was Beis Lechem. So they were from Beis Lechem. They were called the Ephrasim. Was considered to be, it was a matter of prestige. It's like someone says, "This guy's a New Yorker." That's nothing. He's a Postvillian. Oh, that's a Chashav Ezach. So Ephrasim, that was like considered to be top. That was like a name that they had. Another thing, Ephrasim also is the ancestor of Elimelech. Her name was Ephras. What was her other name? What was the other name of Ephras? Knew those that are learning Saita? Miriam Anavia. Miriam Anavia had another name, Ephros, so they were descendants of Miriam, so that's why they were called Ephrasim, which you have sometimes names that are named after a woman. For example, the famous Chassid of the Alter Rebbe, the Pinchas Reizes. Reizes was named after his mother-in-law, Reize. And it seems like his children had the name Reizes as well, so you have other times also the Marsha. The Marsha's last name was... What does that come from? Abel, whatever it is, his mother or mother-in-law, same idea. So you sometimes have people named after the mother, was the matriarch, was an important person, in this case Miriam, so they were called Ephrasim, so they were very chashavah people. They had it all. They had wealth, they had Torah, they had lineage, yichus, they had it all, and yet, like we said, they felt that they had to leave because they can't accomplish much where they are. Vayavayu stay moyov. And they came to the stay moyov. However, the pasuk concludes, Vayiyu Sham. Vayiyu Sham means they came there and they were there. The original plan was, like we said before, Lagor. They wanted to come just to check it out. Till things calmed down, just like by Avraham Avinu. He went to Mitzrayim for a few months, he came back, everything was good back to what it was supposed to be. They figured a little bit. But when they got this day Moav over there already, became comfortable, already Vayiyu Sham. They already started to settle, okay, this is not so bad to live over here, it's a nice place. Like many Chassidim, when the Rebbe told them to live in Eretz Yisrael, many of them came to America. And the Rebbe once told one of these Chassidim, like it was a woman, the Rebbe told her, what are you missing? The Breite Gassen in America, the big wide streets in America, what, the big fancy American life was always considered to be more wealthy. And the Rebbe didn't care about wealth. I wanted the Yiddishkeit, where we could do more mitzvah. The Rebbe wanted people to be wealthy, but the remain avodah. So, but once people come to America, a lot of people, they taste the American quality of life, and they have a hard time going back to Eretz Yisrael. So here as well, Elimelech, his wife, and his children, once they got there, they started enjoying it. And as a result of that, Pasuk Gimel, Vayomos Elimelech ish Naomi, Vatishoid hi ushnei vana. Elimelech passes away, and only she and her sons remain now. So, ish Naomi, the husband of Naomi. Why does it say the husband of Naomi? So it says that there's different ways of explaining what we're trying to bring out. To say that we said he was the one that brought her here, but also Chazal teaches from here that whenever someone passes away, the one that suffers the most out of all is the spouse. A lot of times the children seem to be suffering, and not seem to be. Obviously they're suffering for whoever's involved in the story, but the biggest person that suffers the most is the spouse, because the spouse is the one that the Chazal say the children eventually have their own lives, they get married and they rebuild themselves. The person's siblings has his own life, they have their own lives. But the spouse, whether it's a he or a she, now she's like stuck without her husband, he's stuck without his wife, and that's what the pasuk is saying. Naomi is the one that suffered the most. As we see right away that his children, Machlin and Kilyon, right away, they moved on, they got married and started their own families. So she was the one that suffered the most. But why did it? Naomi, yeah.
So why do people say Naomi?
Naomi. Why does Naomi? It's usually a kapatach and a cholam, or an American cholam. Naomi, right? Not sure. That's how it sounds better. I don't know. Why does Elimelech pass away? So the explanation is because even though he might have had good intentions for leaving, he figured he really can't do anything. But at the end of the day, if you have a responsibility, you can't just say, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm not getting anywhere." Elimelech, the Chazal explained, was wrong for leaving. Elimelech was wrong. Elimelech had to somehow figure it out. You couldn't figure it out like this, so try like this. You can't talk to them directly because they're giving you back musar. Try through somebody else. As a rabbi, as a leader, as a gadol ador, you have an obligation to your people. You can't just say, "Okay, I tried and I can't be. It wasn't matzliach, so I'm leaving." This is the Rebbe's kav also. The Rebbe's opinion always is shluchim. Wherever rabbis, the Rebbe always tells them, "Stay where you are." Very rarely does the Rebbe let somebody leave his makom hashlichus. Always, this is where you are. This is where you're supposed to be. But I can't do it. I can't figure it out. It's all these challenges. You continue doing yours, and usually that's the Rebbe for to daven for them, and then his brachas and his miracles. So that's over here also. Elimelech, even though seemingly he had very valid reasons. Look, he's copying Avraham Avinu. There's a hunger right now. There's going to be fighting. People, no one's listening to me. I can't accomplish anything anyway. No. You're Elimelech. You're the Gadol Ador. You have to stay here and continue inspire. I want to bring Mashiach. Even that's not a good enough excuse. No, your job is to be here right now. That's your shlichus right now. Leaving is a problem. That's why he passes away. And now Naomi and her two sons remain alone in the land of Moab. Now at this point, the question already begs to be asked. So at this point, Naomi, if she was a tzaddikus, l'chayr already now, she should have gone back right away. So it seems to be that Machlin v'Kilyon, even though they were the sons of a gadol, they were the sons of a gdoila. Their parents were great men, were great people. However, they seemingly were not on that level. Machlin v'Kilyon, as we'll see in the continuation of the story, were definitely not as great as Naomi, and the Pashas not even as great as Elimelech. And they wanted to stay. And now for Naomi, that her husband passes away, so now to leave her children also, that's going to be too much already. Like if the children would have been, they would have stayed in Eretz Yisrael as Einzach. But now she lost her husband to go back, so she might have tried talking to her sons and let's go back now. But like we said before, they were happy in this new country. They're in America, land of the freedom. There's no restrictions anymore. They were happy where they were. They weren't interested in going. So therefore, Naomi stayed along with them as well. And now the pasuk continues, Vayisu lahem noshim moyaviyos. They go and they marry non-Jewish women. Now, pretty much all the Mefarshim say they married non-Jewish women while they were still non-Jewish. That there was no giyur. There was no conversion, even though their parents were so great. Unfortunately, they ended up marrying out. I saw a few Mefarshim that they say, no, they were Megayer them first, which is hard to understand because according to the Hemshech of the story, Rus only became a Giyerdis a lot later, after the whole, when she came back. But some say there was some kind of Giyur right now already. But most Mefarshim say there was no Giyur. And what's interesting, some Mefarshim say it like this. As we know later in the story, this is a big part of the whole story of David HaMelech, is that Moav was the country that was a special gzeira against Moav. The gzeira, the Eibushter and the Torah has a special ruling against Moav. Any other Goyish country and a Goyish nation, if the Goy becomes a Ger Tzedek, we accept him 100%. Even a Hamas terrorist, if he wants to become a Ger Tzedek, we'd accept him. That's the halacha, right? The Gemara says the story about the Nir and Kesar. He killed, how many people did he kill over there? A lot. That's the right answer. How many? I think it says 90,000. I think it says the number 90,000, and yet he became a Ger Tzedek. He was accepted, so they'll be accepted as well over here. Huh?
He's a murderer. He's not killed.
Yeah, you ask a good question, but that's the Gemara says that he was this guy. Maybe after he became a Ger Tzedek, they punished him and they killed him. But he accepted him as a Ger Tzedek. Nir and Kesar, the Gemara and Gittin. Maybe that's he's absolved, whatever. So it doesn't say. But regarding Moav, we have this special rule that if a person from Moav becomes a Ger Tzedek, we do not accept him. He's Jewish, but he cannot marry a regular Jewish woman. However, a Moavis, a woman from Moav that becomes a Giyodis, is allowed to marry a Jewish man. And the reason for that is the whole reason why we punish Amin and Moav is because when the Yidden traveled nearby, the Moavim didn't come and held out the Yidden with food and water, and therefore we say, you guys didn't help us out. I mean, even if you become a Jew, there's still something wrong with you. However, that only applies to the men. They were the ones that were supposed to come out. The women, their job is not to come out there. Huh? Cousins. Amin and Moav are our cousins. Yidden and Moav are cousins. You know that, yeah? Amin and Moav, both countries have the same rule. When the Yidden traveled next to Amin and Moav, they didn't hold back. Amin and Moav are our cousins. You know that they're our cousins, yeah? Amin and Moav and the Yidden. You know how? Amin and Moav, who was their father? Lot. Who was their mother? Let's not go there. So Amin and Moav, so they were basically they were first cousins with Yitzchak Avinu, right? Because Lot and Sarah are brother and sister. So so Sarah's son is Yitzchak, and Lot's sons are Aminah, so they're cousins. So should have been a connection. They should have been more.
Cousins and their
Whatever, yeah, all the v'chulu v'chulu. The Rambam has a case like that. A person's like it's a mother-in-law, and yeah. No, that's a different one. There's a smaller one that's more complicated. So because of that, the halacha was that a Mayavis becomes a Geyeres, she could be accepted to marry a Jewish man, and which happens with us later. So some of Harshim imply that Machlin and Kilian were saying, well, if you're allowed to marry a Mayavis, then you can marry a Mayavis, so let's marry her. But they skipped an important factor. You have to first be megayed her, and then, but that's like a little bit of a stretch how they really interpret it, but that's what some of Farshim seem to imply, that they had this calculation that it's not such a bad thing. This woman is not stamagaya, she's a mayavis, which the Torah allows for, so that's why they wanted to marry.